Welcome again to this sacred conversation. I'm really delighted to have Ange De Lumiere here talking about intuition, finances, trauma. I've known Ange for a little while now, and we always have the most incredible conversations. And she's taught me so much about coming back into my own intuition because I'd lost sight of that when I was going through trauma. So Ange is a spiritual lawyer and has had amazing life, but also an incredibly challenging life, I think, like most of us. And that's why she does what she does. And she's just been sharing some more exciting things about where she wants to go. So, Ange, hi. And would you like to introduce yourself? And you might even like to say a spiritual lawyer, because I just love it. What does that mean?
Thank you so much for having me, Chantal. I'm really, I feel very honored to be here in this space with you. I consider you as my friend from how long we've known each other. So spiritual lawyer, let's start with this. I was an international lawyer, business lawyer for 15 years, traveled the world, worked on very interesting projects. And then it's almost like my life came to a halt when I was pregnant with my third child. I was a single mom. By then I had left my first husband. I had moved to the UK with 2 children under 6. And I became pregnant in a relationship that wasn't very stable. And at the same time, my employer was making me redundant without wanting to pay me the package. So I'm not going to go too much into the details of it, because actually it's a scandal that came out in France about how that particular company used to treat their employees, and it's the past for me. But you can imagine that here I am in this country where I have no relatives. I have very few friends. I'm losing my job, and I know that I can't actually work as a lawyer in this country because I'll talk about the wonderful things that brought me to the UK, but I know that in order for me to use my skills in this country, I would have to go back to studying. And at the same time, I'm pregnant, so pretty much unemployable anyway, right? And I have no idea what's going to happen to me. I have a house, I want to keep a roof over my children, and I have no idea how to do that. So I think this is traumatic in itself. To add to the mix, the father of the child I was pregnant with changed his mind about whether he wanted to be with me every other week, because he didn't want that child. It wasn't planned. And I'm going to set a special protection around this video because I don't want my son to come across it. So, yeah, exactly. Thank you. But I feel it's important for this video that I share this information. And so this pregnancy wasn't planned. The father didn't want the child. And I said to him at the start, you do whatever you want. I'm keeping the child, because for me, and again, no judgment on anybody who's okay with abortion, but for me, it didn't feel right. So I went ahead and I had to completely reinvent myself. But it came. So this is when I embraced the spiritual part of me. I had the lawyer part of me, phase 1. Then I had the spiritual part of me, phase 2, for 15 to 16 years. And it's almost like I denied my old self, because within the legal profession, I didn't fit anymore because I'd embraced. So I trained. So the first thing I did is I trained in spiritual healing and then Reiki. And the way I got into it is kind of phenomenal in a way, if you think about it. And I might come back to it in a minute. But so I didn't fit as a lawyer anymore. But in the New Age community, I didn't fit as a lawyer at all. I was ashamed of my past, because people look at lawyers as people who are interested only in money. And it's not actually the case in France. It's slightly different, because lawyers are not get paid as well as they are in the Anglo-Saxon world. So it's more tradition, like a doctor, and even doctors are not paid as much as they are in the UK and in the Anglo-Saxon world. So there wasn't that stigma until I moved to the UK, actually. But that's when I embraced the New Age. That's the whole spiritual and New Age world. And so for 15, 17 years, I lived with the trauma of having no more financial security whilst being a mum to 3. and then eventually to 4. And at the same time, having to deny part of my identity, even though I didn't feel I identify with being a lawyer, it had been a part of my history. And by denying it, I wasn't actually being totally myself. So one day, one of the very few friends that I kept from my previous existence, who is a lawyer himself and who became a coach, tried to introduce me to some former friends that had been to university with me. And to try to explain where I had gone, he called me a spiritualist. And I said, oh, no, I am not a spiritualist. This is not my thing. Even though I'm trained as a medium, this is not something I'm comfortable with. I'm very comfortable with mediumship in general, not with just me doing it. Mm. And so as I immediately, the word popped in my mind, spiritual lawyer. I'm a spiritual lawyer. I'm not a spiritualist. And for me, that was a very different thing. I didn't define it back then. And it's only come, we talked before this interview.
Yes,
it's
yes.
only this week, or this month, let's say September, October, but this week particularly, where I saw how I went on a journey, you know, the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell describes so well, yeah. Where I had to experience something that made me fall from my pedestal or fall away from my life because so much of it wasn't aligned to who I truly was. On that journey of hardships, I will say challenges, because actually all my children are autistic, so it's an added complication in my life. I'm not going to go too much into it, but it causes trauma for myself because I've realized as well I'm autistic, and that's, you know, it's very, very common for someone who has 2, 3, or even 4 children who are autistic to actually be diagnosed at the end, because you recognize so much of yourself in your children, and then usually it's a genetic thing, so it makes sense. And so I'm coming back to the legal community now. I'm just on the verge of the door of getting back into that world to bring the gifts that I've you know, all the knowledge and all the information, all the spiritual, you know, I've been on a spiritual quest and a self-development quest. And I'm the heroine bringing this back to the legal world, so that lawyers who feel this deep thirst for spirituality can access something outside of the religious, you know, setting, because the religious setting, and I'm going to give you an anecdote that illustrates this point, is not necessarily spiritual. It doesn't feed the hunger for spirituality that people have. But I know that lawyers will feel like aliens in the New Age world, in the spiritual world, and so that's why I feel I'm the person to come to them, because I'm one of them, and I can talk their language, and I can bring all that wonderful, all the learning that I've had. So just an anecdote, and I really don't want to make people who are religious uncomfortable. You know, I do respect their religion, their beliefs, but I come from the Catholic faith, in the sense that my father was a Catholic.
Keep talking, I've got to get my headphones because my partner's come. So keep talking. Sorry about this.
Okay.
Because we have possums and all sorts of things happening. So keep, yes.
So my father was a devout Catholic. So and France is a very Catholic. Well, of course, there's a lot of Muslims that people don't acknowledge, but there is this initial tradition of Catholicism. And actually I was nearly not born because my dad wanted to be a priest when he was younger, and he went to the seminar and he met another guy. They were in the Scouts together. It was all this background, and so his best friend became a priest, and my father was told not to become a priest. They said that he wasn't right for that, and that's the only reason I'm born, because if they'd said yes to priesthood, well, I would have been born maybe to other parents, but that's a debate for another day.
Yes.
So anyway, that's how my father became my father. But his best friend, of course, spent a lot of time in our home. So I was raised with the Catholic priests, and you know, as a friend of the family. And what really struck me when I was adult enough to understand the subtlety is that this man actually had no faith. It was mostly belief, but not faith. And that's a very different thing. And I have met other, I'm not saying all of them. So what I'm trying to say here is that spirituality is bigger and broader than religion.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to create a space where people can ask the questions that they know they can't ask from, because I had no answers to my questions from my faith, the faith I was raised in, none of them. I didn't understand. And also I had this strange belief in reincarnation that didn't fit at all with the faith I was raised in. So I had to go on that quest. And this is what started me actually on my spiritual journey, is this interest in reincarnation. Now, I know we're moving a little bit away from the trauma bit, but we're going to come back to this because I had several experiences with my intuition. But of course, intuition and religion are usually mutually exclusive.
Yes. Yes.
It's not welcomed by religion. It's actually even, vilified. And I had this example from my grandmother, because she was a natural psychic, and she was rejected from the church because of her gifts. In a way, she didn't feel that she could fit in. So in a way, to walk away from all that gave me the permission to explore my intuition. I didn't think I was intuitive, but the problem I had, so I started training first in healing modalities, and I was very comfortable with that because I knew that my intent was pure, and that because my intent was pure, when I was doing spiritual healing, and then when I trained as a Reiki master to the top level, I knew that what I gave was a pure gift. There was no strings attached. I didn't have any attachment to the outcome, and I just gave it, without strings attached. I think that's very important to stress that.
Yes.
But then what happened is I was doing these studies on intuition in my mind because I wanted to understand my grandmother and everything, and why did people say there's lineage of psychics and all that, and just generally, and but also because the person that helped me the most to make the step to move to the UK and I have the courage to move away from what was a very toxic family background and a first toxic marriage was a psychic. I went to see a psychic on the recommendation of a friend. I had to make this really difficult decision to actually leave my countries, leave my husband with 2 small children, and take an enormous risk. And this woman gave me the comfort that she confirmed my intuition that it was the right thing to do.
And thank you for sharing that, because I think it gave you the comfort, yet you also knew intuitively. So I think we often, as we underestimate what we already know, how we already intuit things, isn't it?
And this is where I'm going with it. I think I've never trusted my intuition because the amount of trauma that I've been through, even as a child, and because of that, I've needed constant reassurance from psychics and intuitive that my intuition was right.
Yeah.
And I'm today saying it's okay, because there's a big stigma in the intuitive and psychic world in the fact that if you need someone else to give you that comfort. I still need it to this day, and I'm going to own it. And I also think it's a good thing because it enables me to check whether it's my ego and my intuition. And this is always something that's difficult anyway, because your ego is very, very clever. Mine is super clever, and she can mask as my intuition. She can try to tell me the things I want to hear. And she can pauses it. She's very good. So it's almost like I want to debunk that myth that comes with the spiritual communities that, you should be able to get your own guidance and rely on it and not need someone else. Everybody needs a mentor. And I think that's actually something that comes with most spiritual practices anyway. The ancient ones, people always had a mentor.
Yes.
And in the counseling world, people have, a supervisor.
Supervisor. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, because intuition can be blinded or can be veiled by so many things: your beliefs, your emotions, your feelings, what happens to you. And trauma is a big one as well, because intuition comes through the body. And if your nervous system has been impacted by trauma, then it's almost like you're trying to listen to the radio, but with an air fryer on.
Yes, and I like that strategy, because I say what my experience is. It was like I had spaghetti in my brain. There was nothing. It was all completely. So I like what you just said. Yeah, because that's how it feels, doesn't it?
It's, well, that's static, and
Yes.
you're frustrated because everybody tells you, oh, if you do this, this will happen, but it doesn't happen with you, and then you feel lesser for it. And I want your listeners to know that everybody is intuitive. There is no exceptions, because it's a mechanism that was given to Earth to us at birth, to keep us alive. It's part of instinct. Now, there's 3 levels of intuition, as I see it. There's the intuition of the gut, which is totally about survival instinct. There's the intuition of the heart, which is more about our relationships to others. And then there's the intuition of the higher self and the connection to spirit guides, etc., or the bigger picture, or collective consciousness, whatever you want to call it. I don't like words because people get too hung up on words. But so there's these 3 levels, and you tie that in to the pyramid of Maslow. So the needs, I see the pyramid of Maslow, and I don't know if your audience would know what it is, but it's a hierarchy of needs, and he puts spirituality at the top.
Yeah.
So you need to and that's something that goes against what I've been taught when I was trained as a Reiki master, which I also departed from. And I think that for me, and I want your listeners to do the same, for me, things have to be on my terms. If something doesn't feel right, then I'm going to trust my feeling. And I've come across a lot of things that people have said in the spiritual world that I didn't sit well with me. And at least I've had the courage to acknowledge, if it's not right for me, then I'm not taking it. And everybody should have the same attitude.
Yeah.
So I was taught by my Reiki master, again, I'm not pointing fingers, that's how she was trained and that's how she taught, that she was only interested in the top chakras or top energy centers. I don't like using chakras anymore because of the cultural appropriation. So energy centers, we don't have to use the word chakra. And I disagree with that completely. You can't just look after the top of the pyramid. It has to go all the way down, so you have a solid base. Which is why I actually have my framework is about, it's called the EPIC framework, is about the 4 foundations for your business. Yes. Because I build the foundations for your pyramid, so that you can then grow and grow and go up and reach the full spiritual potential that you have, that we all have. Does that make sense?
It all makes sense. It's interesting you say that about spirituality, because when I was healing from my trauma, it was only when I looked back, I stayed in this top energy centers because that's what I was familiar with, and that's what felt safe. I was no longer safe in my body and being grounded. So I also needed to, go on.
No, please finish.
And so I needed to learn over a period of time. So even though I lived here, I didn't always trust my intuition, but I stayed in that spiritual world. That's where I was. Yes, came down into my body. I had to learn to be safe in my body, to be safe in the world, and to be grounded. And like you said, now be able to bring all together. So I've got this flow happening.
Yeah. And this is probably the biggest fault I would put onto the spiritual world, is that they don't care about the body. And it's chronic. Like the Catholics don't care, vilify the body. So it's everywhere. And the only religion that I know that doesn't do that is Tantra.
Oh,
and people only get the the position bit from the religion, which it's such a beautiful, they see the body as the temple. Yes. And so most of the spiritual practices bypass the need of the body, or the fact that the body is a temple for your soul. It is as much sacred as your soul is. There's no distinction. Yeah. And you made a very, very good point, is that intuition comes through the body. Yeah. So if we're not embodied, then we can't. So the more trauma you have, the more you're going to be tempted to come out of your body. And literally, when you have trauma, if you want to have a car accident, your soul will jump out of your body. And people don't know that it's possible for your soul to float above your body. Yes. And you not being embodied. And very often this also leads to huge weight problems for people, because their bodies are trying to compensate for the fact that their soul is not integrated. Okay. Because the body is trying as best as you can to bring you down to earth, and you're not doing it. So most spiritual practices actually don't encourage the most important thing, which is to be embodied. Yeah. Embodiment comes through pleasure as well. So that's why I'm an absolute pleasure advocate. And I've actually, interviewed a pleasure coach on my business podcast because it's so important. The body is important.
Yes.
Feeling pleasure is important. And it could be, I would love to have your feedback on that. It could be that pleasure is actually the door that can help people who have felt trauma to get back into their bodies.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you, because for me, so to expand on when I hear it's about pleasure, having fun, joy, spontaneity, sensuality, sexuality, all those things, because it's all about coming back into your body. I agree with you, but again, the training is like, even with psychotherapy or psychology, which I love, and it really helped me. Again, it's still only about the mind. It's talk therapy.
Yeah.
And
I've done 15 years of therapy, Chantal.
Yes.
And I knew intuitively that there was a huge piece missing.
Yes. Yes.
And that I wasn't going to get better until I addressed other things.
Yeah. Yes. And that's what I'm loving about what's been happening over the last few years, is seeing that more. Talk about somatic, vagus nerve, embodiment. So through massage and whatever it is for you, dance, whatever it might be, that we are. Sorry, say that again. Movement. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it's wonderful, because I'm working at the moment with he's a psychologist, Buddhist, but he's part Aboriginal. So he's bringing in his First Nations way of working with spirit and healing and trauma. And working with nature, Ange, and my God, it's opening up, because I'm only now ready to really stay in my body, but at that deeper level, because I feel safe. And like listeners are saying, and you're saying, we need to feel safe too, to be able to do that. We need to trust our bodies, need to trust us. For me, it was like my body needed to trust me again, but I also needed to trust my body, and then bring that into alignment to be able to go, okay, I'm now ready to embrace what you're talking about at another level.
And for women that are getting into, our age group.
Yes. Yes.
You resist the body more and more. Not only did you not appreciate it when it was young and healthy, mostly for most people, but now you're entering a phase where people start to hate their bodies even more. It gets worse with age, sadly.
Yes.
And with all the expectations as well, that it's going to go decrepit and this, that, and the other, which is not actually true. It doesn't have to happen.
Look, I agree. Go on.
So, well, I guess that's where I am here. It's like, body, please, in the spirituality.
Yeah. And I really appreciate it, because I've noticed too, because I'm turning 60 in a few months. And so a lot of things have come up for me about mind. Who am I? What am I doing? Where's my life been? But something I'm choosing not to say is age is only a number. Age is a number, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not the 60s, the new 50, new 40. Personally, I don't subscribe, because why would I? Why? I'm now turning 60. Like you said, why don't I honor what that means?
Yeah.
Why don't I
think
that
we've lost the wisdom of the elders and the respect for the elders, for sure. Yes. And I feel incredibly privileged to be the age that I am, because I know a lot of people don't make it.
Yeah.
I feel incredibly privileged that I can go for a run if I want to. Yeah. And that I don't take medication.
Yeah.
And I don't see why I should at any point. But by the time my parents were my age, they were both on medication and with lots of, ailments, etc. And it's not a judgment. It's not a judgment. But I have certainly see that when I moved from the UK from France to the UK is also when I started embracing the responsibility for my body. I'm responsible to look after it.
Love it.
If I have an illness, this illness is my friend and it's here to show me something. Let's listen to it.
Listen,
it's been a journey, for sure.
It is. And listen, then act on it. So, because I know a lot of us, or I think the world is, we push. If you're sick, it's a sign of weakness. Yeah. It's a sign of, I'm pathetic, or I should be over this. Rather than going, my body's actually showing me or telling me, oh, excuse me, you've overstepped it. You've done too much.
Yeah. And I look at my younger self, because I've been flirting with burnout my entire life. I look at my younger self, and I was a lawyer when I traveled the world and came back, and then had to look at my kids, and I would go to the doctor, give me antibiotics so I can go to work. There was none of that. Let's get some rest, because it wasn't even allowed.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And if you showed
So
any
there's,
sign of emotional weak or something like that, well, then you might lose your job, or you get criticized or something like that, you know?
yeah. So it's almost like you leave yourself at the door.
That's it.
And I don't
That's
think
it.
that works long term. That's a mentality of squeezing your lemons, your employees like lemons, and then discarding them when they're done. You want to have lemon trees, and you want to have a garden, and people who will be happy at work and who will be fulfilled and who will give their best. But their best doesn't mean in the number of hours. Their best is in the quality.
That's exactly right. And again, I'm watching this fear of people going back to work after all the things that have happened and lockdowns and not going right. And companies were going, people want to work from home, but there's still that old adage or that fear, well, they might not do their work. Are we going to get value for money? Well, actually, I do believe there'll be some who won't. But, if people feel trusted and can work their own hours, they'll give so much more.
And I think it's us, and we're getting into philosophy here, Chantal. I think maybe we need to,
come back to spirituality. Yeah.
maybe no, because it's all relevant.
Yes.
I think we're in an era where people need to step into responsible adults, but also employers need to treat them the same way.
Yes, I agree.
And not be treated like children. And in the industrial age, people who were working were treated like children for the most part, unless they were at the top of the hierarchy. And even the idea of a hierarchy, this is what's wonderful about the next generation, is they're breaking all these barriers, and they're breaking, and the pandemic has helped us tremendously in that respect.
And I agree
because I am now able to access services that would have never been able to access because I had to go somewhere and I didn't have the time to go there.
Yeah,
I can do it from my own home, and things like even counseling. People didn't think that it would be possible to do it in Zoom. Well, maybe there's a different thing that happens in person, but there's certainly a lot that happens in Zoom, and it's suitable for certain people. So was it not available for so long? Now, there's no use looking back. We want to look, towards the future.
Yes, we do. We do.
So, and I see the incredible progress, and that's why we're talking about what we're talking about today, Chantal. The fact that I'm ready to come back from my heroine's journey back into the corporate world to talk about all these things, and because I think they're ready.
Look, I agree
there has
with
been
you.
some big changes.
There have been, and this sort of brings us to sort of the close, because I think you and I could go on, but I love that you have come back. And what I thought about, you went phase 1, phase 2. This is now phase 3, and
absolutely
coming back to the excitement,
like a good Shakespeare play.
Exactly. Yes. Oh my God, we could go down there as well. And what I'm loving is that it just, so we can bring in all the trauma and the excitement and the age, but that at this stage of our life, to think, when I heard you say spiritual law and what you want to do now in your phase 3, my whole body went yes, because look at what we this time of life, we can still have excitement, we can still have fun, we can still succeed and do things, we can still be visible.
And maybe I want to finish with one thing, if that's okay, Chantal.
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm aware of time and I have a commitment in 2 minutes. Is that, a lot of women my age think, oh, now all I need to do is I'm on my descent, and how many years do I have before I die? Now, my whole attitude to life has been transformed through my journey. And I'm just saying that for me, the end of the life on this planet is going to be the beginning of something else. And so I'm looking forward to reaching that. And in the meantime, I'm going to make every minute of it worth my time, full of joy, full of pleasure, full of fulfillment, and also inspiration for others. I want to be the elders that we've lost. I want to be part of this movement of women and men who can be there as mentors, but also to listen to the young generation that have so much to teach us as well.
I think that's a beautiful way to end, because I agree with you. If we want to be seen, we also need to see.
Because I remember as a child, my grandmother would always invalidate me because I was a child, and I'm not happy with that at all. The age isn't worth both ways.
It does.
That's
absolutely.
What people don't realize.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it does work both ways. So we need to, that's right. Oh my gosh,
about
Ange.
Mutual respect. Yeah.
Mutual respect, mutual honor, mutual understanding, and just accepting. Like, I know sometimes when I talk with the younger generation, I don't get half of it, to be honest. And I can hear myself going, oh, when I was that age, which I never thought I'd say, but it's about being open and going, yeah, that's what we did then, but it's different now, and that's okay, you know?
And also maybe, and I really need to go, Chantal. So
Yes, and I
wanna
know
thank first your listeners for their patience and our conversation. But I want to say, I really, because I have such amazing kids, I really honor the next generation and honor. They taught me everything I needed to know about what was important and intuition, to be frank, that I had lost along the way through my education.
Yeah.
So these, don't look at young people as, without experience. They actually come with gifts from where they come from.
Thank you. That's a beautiful way of ending. So thank you very much, Ange. If anyone wants to get in touch with Ange, I'll have all her links down in the description. If you want to reach out, make comment, one of us will get back to you. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your time, Ange. And I'm sure we'll have another conversation further around this. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone, and thank you.
Bye.